Hello, everyone. Good evening if you're in Europe. Good morning and good afternoon if you're tuning in from further afield. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, let us know where you're watching from. Give your flags a little wave or your country a shout out in the comments below. I'm Andy. If you've not been watching, I'm obviously from Heritage Parts Centre. I've worked for Heritage for 12 years. I spend a lot of my time meeting people and creating stories about them and their vehicles. I've been having great fun doing these interviews since back in May. I think we started. Over onto our IGTV and check out some of the other Porsche conversations we've had with Oil Called show organizer Frank Cassidy and also a classic Porsche editor Keith Hume. If you like kind of tonight's chat, here he is. We'll be with you in just a second, sir. Tonight's guest is a media triple threat. He's the editor of Total 911 magazine. He's on YouTube as that 911 guy, and most recently he's teamed up with a couple of pals to record the excellent Road to Redline podcast. Is of course Mr. Lee Sibley. Welcome along, Lee.
You're very kind, Andy. Thank you, mate. Yes, it's been good fun. This I've done my nervous wee, so we're ready to talk about that.
Let's go. We'll start with kind of magazine stuff. What were the car magazines you were reading when you were growing up?
That is a very good question. So I've actually managed to get a copy that inspired me. Now they're before my time, but I should caveat by saying, growing up, my dad he was in the magazine trade, he printed magazines, so he always bought different types of magazines home. Land Rover magazine, I remember. There was a fishing magazine. Total 911 was one of them latterly, but it inspired me to look at magazines. So I sort of like premium 80s proper automotive journalism, which is car. That's my favourite magazine cover of all time. And if you can see that, 959, F40, Countach, and Ferrari GTO, just simply one headline: there will never be another month like this. That to me is kind of proper automotive journalism. Like just more of the same, to be honest. Just like old school car mags, not really kind of one in particular.
Are you a magazine hoarder?
Not really. Only I love those ones because I just think like the quality of journalism is so high, if not so much the photography. Obviously, a different life, wasn't it? But yeah, the quality of journalism was so high, and I think the mark of that is the fact that they're still relevant today. Obviously, you ignore the prices and numbers quoted, but in terms of how they're written, how the cars drive, how they make you feel as a person, those features from 25, 30 years ago are just as relevant now. Car magazine for me back in the day was just dream world. It really was.
Was your dad into cars as well?
Not really, no. So my dad drove like a clapped out old Mazda van for years, and so he was never kind of big into cars. But his best mate was. He had a 964 C2 Cabriolet Guards Red, lovely thing. That was like my first dabble with just sports car experience, being like this young kid. I remember being petrified of it, actually, because we were driving through these country roads in Essex, where I'm from originally, and I was just like perplexed by this noise coming from behind, obviously being different to the front. Kind of like that's, I think, where like the Porsche Porsche love had been embedded, if you like. It was just more of a curiosity more than anything. But the old man wasn't really into cars. It was more just bringing home the magazines, and I was kind of slowly indoctrinated into that form of media.
So was it reading the magazines that kind of made you wanted to follow a path into journalism or media?
I think so, to be honest. Yeah, a bit of that. And what I quite liked growing up was news journalism, the idea of the responsibility of providing news to people generally, and kind of to locals, or if you're in a national magazine, that type of thing. So a bit of both, I'd say, a bit of both.
And obviously, before you kind of did what you did you study to do kind of journalism and stuff, or are you kind of fallen into it by accident?
No, very much studied. I wanted to be a journalist from day dot, to be honest with you. It was something I always wanted to do. So my kind of school life and then college, university was all kind of geared for it. I actually went to university down here. I'm based in Poole. Bournemouth University, which is like media school. The way the course was set up, a lot of people were kind of geared to go on to 24-hour news stations, tabloids, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to write about cars. I love cars, just like most people on your channel do, you know.
Yeah, yeah. What was your first magazine job then?
Fast Car magazine.
Oh, very nice, racy.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah, just very kind of like street racer type vibe. First car as well as fast car, really, you know.
Yeah.
It was just awesome, and what that gave was so much kind of diversity. Everybody liked taking a car and modifying it, making it better, and their kind of definition and interpretation of that was so different. And it brought in like the European scene with like OEM Plus. Then you'd have like, yeah, JDM culture, Bo Suzuki going more extreme, the SoCal look in the States. So just this absolute melting pot of yeah, everybody's interpretation of their dream or perfect car.
Yeah,
really
yeah.
Cool. Like, yeah, loved it, to be honest with you. Great way to cut your teeth, not just in car culture, but also in kind of the world of automotive journalism.
Yeah. What were you doing with them? Did you get out to any exciting events and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I mean, I was staff writer at first, which is basically posh for T-boy. But I was out and about quite a lot, and yeah, you have to go to kind of all the shows and all of the like the car meets. They were kind of evenings, so they weren't really like the cars and coffee that we know now.
Yeah. B&Q car park.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like you frequent like Santa Pod, obviously, on so many different occasions. Always seemed to be in the Midlands. There were so many car events in the Midlands, whether it was like Ultimate Dubs, GTI International, which I know you've been to previously. You're a big like famous
and Ultimate Dubs, yeah.
Yeah, you know, so I mean, I always gravitate towards kind of the German stuff anyway, but yeah, it was fantastic. Like, obviously it was all UK based. That's kind of what it is at the time, but yeah, like I say, fantastic way to cut your teeth into car culture ultimately.
So what kind of then got you from that to Porsche? What got you into the Porsche scene?
The offer of a job, Andy, to be honest with you, mate. Yeah, my kind of dabble with Porsche pre getting the job at Total 911 was very, very limited. I kind of had no real right to go for the job because I was quite young at the time, but by the same token, because I was young, I was cheap to my employers, you know, compared to contemporaries that might be a little bit older than me. So it kind of worked both ways, I think. And yeah, I have to say, since getting that job at Total 911, which was 8 years ago now, 2012, it's just been the absolute gateway to just like an amazing international community of people dedicated to these just awesome cars, you know?
Yeah. So obviously you kind of touched on it there. You were kind of a younger gentleman. You've got your youthful good looks. Have you kind of had any sort of age-related discrimination kind of working around like premium cars? If you have put it nicely.
Yeah. I've been quite lucky, to be honest with you, Andy. I'd say not overall. I've had no problem walking into Porsche dealerships, which is kind of quite the contrary, because I've had a lot of stories of kind of people not being too enamoured with the vibe, if you like, in Porsche dealerships. And actually, I know of a Porsche dealer principal who's confided in me that on the first day of his job, he'd moved from, I think, a BMW in the Sittner group to take over a Porsche. He spent half an hour before his first day at a Porsche dealership sitting in his car outside because he was too nervous to go in.
Wow.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting, but like not completely unheard of from the customer point of view. I've kind of never really found that I've been okay. The former head of PR at Porsche GB, Mike Orford, was brilliant with me. I had a meeting with him. I was 22 years old, 23 years old. And on Porsche GB's insurance policy, you had to be at the time 25 and over to drive in. So we had this kind of awkward thing. It was like, we might not be able to produce a magazine here. He was good as gold, made the exception, so put me on the policy, got me up to the experience centre, kind of, like I say, yeah, just got me involved in what these cars are about, how to drive them properly, responsibly, and all that sort of thing. And it went from there, really. Yeah, but I would say I have been quite lucky overall, as you well know. You know, 944 only yourself. The Porsche community is inclusive, not exclusive.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I haven't really found anything like ageist or kind of sexist. For example, I know Porsche is really keen on getting more women involved in these cars, which is great, you know. So I've never really found any kind of socio parameters like that to be a stumbling block with a Porsche. It's a brilliant community full of amazing people, you know.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. So total 911. What's your kind of your typical reader? Is there kind of one generation that's kind of the majority of people have got, or is it kind of pretty even spread?
It is even spread. Yeah, we cover at Total 911. We cover all 911s. So from the very earliest cars, 1963 or 64, of course, first by the time they rolled off the production line. Yeah, right up to the modern day. So we have to get the balance right. You know, they're always as much as we'll cover a new 992 at the moment, and say GT3 might be the next car.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility to cover just as, or to cover as much, say the 3.2 Carrera or the 993 or anything like that. There is a real spread. I would say overall, a T911 reader typically would have two cars, maybe a 991 as a daily or a 992 now, and then a toy for weekend use, be it an air-cooled car or a modern RS for track day stuff. That tends to be from our research, kind of where our readers sit, which is great. And like I say, that's why we have a responsibility to cover every area of kind of Porsche culture that entails.
So how much of your day job at Total 911 spent writing yourself, and then how much of that's kind of managing sort of freelance content or whatever?
Good question. Bit of both, to be honest with you, Andy. Ultimately, like, direction for what we cover in the magazine is down to me, but equally I get some fantastic pitches from people that will come along and say, we've got this car. So it's kind of just about like treading the best line for that, really. You do writing as an editor. I would say it's very easy actually as an editor to not do writing and to just edit other people's work. But I would say that's bad practice. It's good to kind of keep your pen handy and keep in the game. It keeps kind of you sharp as a person and a journalist. You get to the industry to be an editor, to be a journalist first, and then like an editor kind of comes later. But being a journalist is your core craft, so it's good to keep your hand in that sense. But like I say, we have some awesome pitches, and again through like contacts, owners that are very good to give us cars. There's sometimes like the opportunities come to us, So it's good fun.
So kind of one of the other things you do, one of the other hats, obviously you do your YouTube channel, that 911 guy. What was your kind of the catalyst for jumping in front of the camera?
I think just like an honest observation that media is moving on. I think there will always be room for print, always, and particularly like niche media. I think that's it's properly vetted by people in the know. Sometimes you come across the odd moody website that's not quite done its homework or whatnot. So I think that's where for niche media magazines win. But ultimately media is expanding. People consume media in different ways. So what I found, a 911 enthusiast, some might pick up a magazine, and in which case I would hope T911 is the preferred choice. But equally, some people prefer learning via a video or listening, in which case a podcast is good. So I think it's just about making developing a good spread of content that's available to people on their preferred platform, whatever that media is, So
do you do all your own filming and editing for that, or you kind of got a team with you, or?
No, it is in the main me, which is it's quite funny. Sometimes it involves basically like putting the camera and tripod at the side of the road, running to the car, getting in, doing a couple of drive-bys, and just hoping that the camera's
no one nicks it.
You come back, so that is kind of quite funny. But I mean, no, I have had some help in the past, which is great. Just sometimes it helps, doesn't it? Kind of same with anything really. Like the more hands you have helping, it makes for lighter work, and the production values go up and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, in the main, it's kind of me, 2 GoPros and a digital camera for doing other bits and pieces. But how good is that like the modern world we live in, it just, that's all it takes to create content, and to create a channel of anything. I just do it about 911s, but you can do it of absolutely anything. And I just think that is like the absolute wonderful, positive part of media these days,
It's the kind of the polar opposite to 4 channels on your telly, isn't it? Like, which you had to kind of get up to change, like when I was growing up. So
like I say, to be honest with you, like one of these magazines I was having a look at earlier. I don't know if I can find it now, but like no, I can't find it. It's not here. The cover picture is like someone's taken it. It's a car-to-car tracking shot, which is very hard to do, by the way. Anyway, particularly to get the subject in focus. Now, it's I think Car Magazine, April 1984. It's got an Aston Martin on the front. It's taken at night. They've done a flash, and all you can see is just like the front, like near side front headlight, basically, and that's it. Yeah. Which is quite funny. So yeah, like technology has moved on quite substantially these days, because now like you're able to do, you know, sweeping tracking shots around Laguna Seca with a camera that moves across the front of the car for like premium, like good HD footage and stuff. So yeah, we've come a long way, and by the same thing, you know, amateurs are able to create content that is of like good enough quality of what you might have seen on television like 10, 15 years ago in some circumstances, you know, not necessarily there, I have to say, but you know, people a little bit kind of higher up the food chain.
So let's go on to 996s for a second. You've had a few of them, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I've had 3 so far.
And you've kind of become a bit of an ambassador for them. You started doing like your fried egg meats. I thought, I was just wondering really whether your love for those has been led by the particular model itself, or whether like because they're so accessible, whether it's kind of sort of steered you into that kind of from a financial point of view, really. Yeah,
both, Andy, to be honest. The 996 is great value no matter where you come into. So whether it's kind of Carrera, at 5th gen 911s, agree with me, I see you. Whether you start with a Carrera or a Turbo, a GT3 or a GT3 RS, no matter what kind of 911 model you wish to go for, it's always the 996 that is the cheapest, or what I deem best value, you know?
Yeah.
The 996 RS is a fantastic case in point of that. 682 made, it's you know, the 3rd rarest water-cooled Rennsport of all time. You know, you can pick one up for 150k at the moment. It's just incredible value for money. And I say it's a fantastic 911. The last 911 where it kind of really is just you, 3 seats and 3 pedals and a steering wheel.
Yeah.
So you know, in terms of my cars and the fact, yes, Carreras, yes, it's the accessibility point of view. They're kind of all under 20 grand, but I just think there's so much that a 996 has going for it, no matter kind of what model you choose. Yeah. I think the celestial moment for me was we did a Gen 1 v Gen 2 996 head-to-head in Total 911 magazine. I was just astounded. Like, yes, you know, the build quality isn't the same as other 911s, but it's not a bad 911. It's not a bad 911 by any stretch of the imagination. And it just made me realise whether you decide to go for Gen 1 or Gen 2, and they've both got their merits. You know, it's such an awesome car and a gateway into the Porsche community. You know, you pull up at a hotel for, you know, valet parking, and someone says, "Lovely 911, mate." They don't say, "Well, that's a clapped out 996, mate." You know, so, yeah, and that's what I mean. It's kind of it's the gateway and the accessibility point for so many people into the 911 world. You know.
Yeah. So having kind of piloted some of the, well, I guess the fanciest models in the name of work. What would you be spending your money on? Like, if your numbers came up, you got kind of a shopping list. Should you get lucky?
It's a great question. It's a great question. My favourite 911 is the 997 Gen 2 GT3 RS. Yeah, like it's such a fantastic car. It's the last. I prefer it to the 4 litre, to be honest, because you have to really wring the engine out a lot more. It doesn't quite have that lower down torque that the 4 litre has. And obviously all the collectors are clambering for the 4 litre. So the 3.8's a great value at the moment. I think, again, similar, you know, 150k you can get for a grade one. Great example. So that for me is the car I'd get. I think it's funny, isn't it? Because with any 911s, they're touted as the everyday car, and the car that you can do a track day in and then take your, you know, significant other to the cinema and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the same token, I think like a garage of 4 or 5 wouldn't go amiss, you know. So I'd love an air-cooled Targa, a G-Series Targa. I just think they're so gorgeous, so pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Andy? I'm keen to know what you'd say to that question.
I don't know really. If you take price, you kind of become a little bit blind to. Since we've kind of been doing Porsche parts, 3-4 years or something like that. You start looking through the adverts. Yeah. Once you kind of get into them, you go, that one's only 50 grand, and you start thinking, like, you then kind of have to put your realistic hat back on. You're like, probably not in the market for a 50 grand car at the moment. Yeah, the RS is, yeah, definitely. I like I like older cars. I probably wouldn't go 991 or 992. I don't think. I like underdogs, which is kind of one of the reasons I got a 944.
Yeah.
I toyed with 996, but I was bottom end of 996. I was like, I don't really want to buy myself a headache.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't have had the money to back up a headache basically. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
944 was a sort of sensible choice. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know really. The problem is I couldn't then if I had to move on to another one, I don't know whether I could then bring myself to sell what I've got, and I've then also not got a situation where I can have 10 cars.
Yeah, no, that is completely the thing, you know, and like, yeah, the 911, it is meant to be, you know, this kind of diverse sports car, the sports car for every occasion. Like even mine now, my 996, so Little Irish as we call it, Bosch. It's getting more and more sort of like performance oriented. It's not as practical to run to the shops as it kind of used to be and stuff. So you do start then thinking, well, you know, might have to look at something else as an extra and whatnot. But again, like there's so much choice, isn't there? If you walk into Porsche and say, I want a 911, please, it's a bit like walking into a clothes shop and saying, can I have a t-shirt? They'll say, well, what colour do you want it? What fit do you want it? What do you want it made out of? It's kind, you know, so you have to kind of dial in the 911. It's the kind of what your lifestyle's all about, basically. And actually it's funny with 996s, just going back to that, because they are definitely getting a lot more popular, but I find that dealers are still quite reticent to stock them and put their name to it and warranty to them. Like you know, I mean, the engines are made out of chocolate ultimately. And, you know, you could be buying yourself an expensive headache, and ultimately there's no set recipe for a good 911 and a good 996 engine. You know, it's kind of it's luck of the draw, and that's scary when you're spending 15k upwards, isn't it, on a car?
Yeah, I think there's some of it which is like there's never been a better time to buy, so you really need to, if you're going to do it, you need to do it. But then equally, you don't need a headache. And I guess a bit like buying a cheap Boxster. You buy a cheap Boxster, if the engine goes bang, you basically throw it away. That's kind of almost where you're at. And you're probably not far off if you bought a 10 grand 911 and
without doubt,
and it went bang, you'd be breaking it for spares next day, wouldn't you?
There's a guy who came to my fried eggs event at the weekend. He bought a 996 Gen 1 for 4 grand. Obviously, UK car. I don't know anybody, you know, in this kind of day and age that's bought a 996 for less than that. I know Magnus, I think he spent 5k USD on his. But yeah, he bought it for 4 grand off a work colleague, which is an interesting plot twist. And the engine went bang, and he's that and all the extra stuff he's had to do it. He spent a further 16 grand. He's now 20k in, and I mean, in fair play to him, like it's a good 996. He spent the money wisely, but it just goes to show, doesn't it? It might be cheap to buy, but these cars are still Porsche money to run, maintain, and fix if they go wrong. You know, it's so important to find the right one.
Yeah. Have you got any secret car crushes outside of the Porsche mark?
Not really. I'm quite boring, to be honest with you. I seem to spend like so much time just looking at like Porsches and whatnot that I just get a little bit blindsided by everything else. And you know, people are talking about these new cars that are released on Instagram and whatnot. And to me, I just, you know, I have to have a Google and find out what it's all about, sort of thing. You know. I will say, because obviously everything I do professionally is dedicated to kind of the 911, but the Cayman's a quality car. You know, there was a bit of stick given it on our Road to Red podcast, but it was all a bit tongue in cheek. And I have to say, like, going back to your earlier question, Andy, about like, you know, lottery win cars, I would have a Cayman R in my garage without a shadow of a doubt. They're superb. Viper Cayman R. There we go. How about that during the conversation? Just as we're talking about Cayman Rs. But yeah, they're fantastic. And again, in terms of values, quite under the radar. Compared to other Porsche stuff that has obviously skyrocketed. I just think it's such a fantastic, nimble driver's car, you know?
Yeah. Talk, I guess, driving and stuff. Have you got involved much with track days? Love
track days, to be honest with you. Yeah. This year, obviously, like COVID, so nothing's happened.
Stops everything.
Yeah. There's a track day in Anglesey coming up in October. I'll be joining in. But yeah, before my car was painted and it had the like hideous wrap on it, I basically just looked at it as just like a shield, basically, so I could do no wrong sitting on track days. Do a lot of them with the Porsche Club. They're fantastic track days, really well organised. Not too many out on track as well, which is good. If not, it can turn into a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, track days are fun, and you know, as you kind of well know, it's the only place really where you can get the most out of these cars. It's kind of part and parcel of being Porsche ownership now, is you have to get to the track days.
Yeah. You got a favourite circuit?
Do you know, I did it once. So my brother, he's got a Clio race car. We call it the bird bath because it sits at the back of the garden. It gets like literally collecting water. It gets dug out once a year for a track day, and that's it. But it's good fun. So 182, and him and I went to Bedford Autodrome.
Okay.
What a fantastic circuit it is. It goes on forever. It's to look at. It's nothing special. It's very flat and whatnot. And it is an old airfield ultimately. But I just thought that track was so awesome. So awesome. And yeah, it's not really a track that people talk about too much, is it? Especially in the UK, people mention Goodwood or Silverstone or whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I quite enjoyed that. Otherwise, I love Snetterton. Way up in Norfolk. It's hours away from me here on the south coast.
Yeah.
I love Snetterton. I don't know what the name of the corner is, but the second to last corner again that goes on forever. And in the 911, it's just all about being patient with that throttle and keeping the car balanced. It's fantastic. So, do you do many in the 944? I'm interested to know.
I've done two. I've done Goodwood twice in kind of wet and damp, and I've driven Brands a couple of times on like taster days. So I've done single seater and M3s around Brands.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the plan, is to do a few more. You get hooked on them though. That's the problem, and I can't afford. I've got kind of a young family as well. I can't really afford to get hooked on a few £100 every month, and then all the rest and the brakes and the tyres and.
Yeah, that is the thing, isn't it? It's funny you mentioned Brands because, you know, a lot of GT Porsche struggle to get on there because of noise restrictions. And I find it fascinating that we've got cars here that can't be used on track sort of thing. You know, I know people that have to go down the route of silencers, but it's a shame. You know, Castle Combe on the west coast is fairly okay for noise and stuff, but it's funny people can't use their cars at these venues. It just blows my mind, really. You know.
Yeah, mine tests at 96, I think, or 98, so it's pretty friendly, really, for quite a lot of circuits. Goodwood's pretty fussy, especially if you go on kind of a cheaper day. So been all right so far.
Yeah, no, good. That is, fair play.
So yeah, I guess let's move on to Road to Redline. Really, you've obviously started this podcast with your friends Joe and Andy. I've listened to pretty much all of them during lockdown while I've been working at home, which has kind of kept me company. What was the inspiration kind of behind starting that?
Look, Andy, to be honest, like even before lockdown, we decided that, my two pals, Joe and Andy, we just kind of wanted to do a podcast. We like listening to podcasts. It's a new form of media, isn't it? What's not new, kind of new to us. And we were kind of fascinated by it. And again, like, you know, the positive of modern media is you don't need a great setup to kind of get going. You know, you don't have to be Radio 1. So we got together and we thought, look, we all love Porsches. We all own different Porsches. Let's just get together, and it's almost kind of pub style. We'll just get together, have a chat, put it out on air, and if anybody listens to it, then that's a bonus. You know, not too dissimilar to what we're doing now, I suppose. But, you know, and we've been just blown away by the uptake on it. It turns out, you know, lockdown is the best time to launch a podcast because everybody's at home. They've kind of got to listen to us, really, haven't they? But it's great, and it kind of works in a really weird way because we're all into kind of different little facets of kind of Porsche culture. Obviously, I rep the 996s. Andy is the air-cooled guy, staunch 993 fanatic, very fastidious with how he builds his cars, whereas I'm a bit more of a checkbook mechanic. And Joe's just kind of the numbers man, you know, like he's excellent at finding what's a good deal. He's happy to pull people up when they're not given a good deal. And it just kind of works. And we enjoy getting guests on and kind of telling their story, kind of similar to what we're doing here. Yeah. But also, it's kind of it's just great to kind of sit around a table with a pint and talk about cars. It's what everybody does, isn't it? You know, we just seem to be doing it in front of a microphone, and for some weird reason, people like to listen to it. So we're so grateful of that, you know, and we're grateful, Andy, that you give it a listen as well, mate. We really are.
Yeah, a bit like Gogglebox for cars, isn't it? Really, like, without having to watch it.
It is, yeah, it really is. And you know, there's some fantastic Porsche podcasts out there as well. James Auto Amateur in the States is again brilliant, and kind of represents the everyman in their own kind of crusade with taking a 996, building it. Then he got onto 997, then 991. So he's been on a fantastic journey and shared that with people, which is awesome. And it's great again that podcasts as a media platform provide that sort of easy accessibility for all of us enthusiasts to enjoy.
Yeah. Have you had any guests on who kind of you felt have really taught you something, whether it's like a life lesson or kind of a car related skill that you could kind of use in the future?
So I think they all have. I know it's really cliche. Gogglebox, I love that. Dave the Blade. Excellent Instagram name as well, by the way. I love that.
Dave works in our IT team. He does a lot of our web design and stuff. So yeah, he's subject to my puns quite often, and he's pretty handy with the words himself. So yeah, nice work, Dave.
I like it a lot. I do. You learn from all of them, and actually, I kind of don't mind saying candidly. There's some, because we're all as a trio responsible for the guests we get on, which we'll either go for a phone and say it'll be good for a chat, or it might be a little bit more cultivated.
Yeah.
There are some, and I will not name any names here at all, but when you think, kind of, I wonder how interesting that'll be, or it's not really my bag and stuff.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, those, for me personally, turn out to be the most rewarding conversations, probably because I got a lot more from the conversation than I realised. And we have all sorts on there. We had, obviously, Magnus Walker on there a couple of weeks ago, which most people have heard of. Then we've got our mates on there, and we give just the same amount of airtime to them telling their story, because it's just as important. And that really is what we want to stand for on Road to Redline, is give everybody an opportunity. Like we say, everybody's got car stories. Everyone's got hilarious anecdotes and, close shaves and, everything. So it's just great to be able to share it all. But yeah, in terms of learning the most, it's probably from the unexpected guests who will remain nameless.
The ones you're a bit dubious about.
Yeah, exactly. And turn out to be absolute blinders.
Have you got either an episode or a feature or like a YouTube video that you're most proud of? Something you kind of think, yeah, I knocked it out of the park there.
To be honest, just the most ludicrous one was driving to the Arctic Circle and back from London.
As you do.
Bonkers, yeah. And again, like, credit to Porsche GB PR. I kind of said to them, I'd quite like to drive to the Arctic Circle. Obviously being firmly expecting the good news in return, and being told where to. They were like, that could work. We're thinking Targa GTS, and they were great. The cars usually, the press cars usually get kind of defleeted around 10,000 miles mark. Used to, it's a little bit more these days. But they were brilliant and kept that one on. So we had a 991 Gen 2 GTS Targa, basalt black with red leather. It's a beautiful, beautiful car. And they let us drive from London to the Arctic Circle and back, which it's just absolutely ludicrous. We split it in the magazine into 2 parts, obviously, because it took ages to do.
What was your rough route?
So on the way there, it was obviously Channel Tunnel to France, then into Germany, obviously, via Belgium and Holland, then Denmark. So just autobahns up to Denmark. There was a ferry then to Sweden, and then up from there. I'm trying to remember the name of that fantastic bridge we crossed. Can't remember, but and then all the way essentially up the east side of Sweden, which was brilliant. Stopped off in Stockholm, met the Roughneck Brigade, like air-cooled 911 outlaws, basically. Cracking bunch. Go and have a look at those guys if you can. They're awesome. And up into like the Arctic Circle, where we went during the World Cup of 2018. So we stopped off every time England was playing and found like a bar or somewhere where we could watch England. And we had a fantastic time where we were playing England, playing Sweden, I think, in the quarterfinals. We were in a hotel in Sweden surrounded by Swedish people. There was just a sea of yellow shirts. My photographer and I just sitting there, very plainly English, probably. Beer we were drinking, but just like that just doesn't happen, does it? So it was so awesome. It was so good. And then, yeah, obviously it was 24-hour daylight at the time, which was kind of a little bit disorienting, but really, really cool to do. Got to the Arctic Circle centre, got the obligatory kind of picture for the Instagram. Yeah, and then just turn around and come home. But we were in Norway by this point. That's where the Arctic Circle centre is. Stopped off at the Arctic Circle Raceway, which is like the most northerly racetrack in the world, I believe.
Okay.
There was a bike track day going on at the time. We were trying to blag our way onto the track for like just like a couple of just like even a parade lap where we could get a picture.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite happen. I think there's a little bit of animosity between bikes and Porsche guys. I don't know, but it was it was good fun. And then yeah, back through Norway, which is just like the most beautiful country in the world for me. I've not seen anything like it. Just in terms of topography, the roads are absolutely outstanding. Yeah, and then drop down into Denmark and home. So yeah, nice little short trip of around 4,500-5,000 miles all in. So
amazing.
Yeah, great fun.
So I'm guessing this might be the answer to the next one. Really, have you had any? I wish my mates were here for this moments. Is that potentially?
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, like that Arctic Circle trip without doubt. But rather than mates, I'd say my dad. I'd have loved my old man to be there because he, I say, got me involved by giving me these magazines, coming home, slinging them on the table, saying, "Here you go and learn something." It started the love for magazines and media and creating good content, creating inspiring content, and then that started me on the road to university to then get the job, to then luck out completely with my brother's giving a shout out to him there, with the T911 job, and then all of a sudden I found myself standing in the Arctic Circle with a car that somebody has given me. I'm being paid to be there. It was just, I mean, it's as good as it gets for me. Nothing will beat that, I'm sure. And I'd have loved to just have my dad there, and mainly so we could pay for lunch, really. Yeah, I think that'd be the one. It's a good question. That is, there's a lot you could kind of put to, but yeah, would have been nice to take him for sure.
Have you've obviously met Magnus a few times? Have you been to his workshop?
I have, yeah, been out there a couple of times. I mean, what an awesome place. And the other thing I will say is I remember one time, because it's like a film set as well, isn't it, or whatever's going on. And have you been there?
No, I've never met him actually.
Okay, yeah.
I've kind of I've watched a fair bit of his stuff and read his book, and comes across as a lovely chap. But never met him. One day.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll come on and do one of these, to be honest with you, because he's that kind of guy. But like one time I turned up there was some film set on. I've turned up in this like rental truck. You've always got to get a truck as a hire car when you go to the States. If you're from Europe, don't spend the money on all the American muscle cars. Just get a truck. And so I've turned up in this like clapped out 150, F-150, and they're like, "Can we help you?" And I'm like, "I'm here to see Magnus." And they're like, "Oh, right, okay." And then like you're walking along trying to find the guy. You're stepping over wires, going under like flaming hot lights. There's people doing makeup everywhere, and you're just like, "I'm just looking for like a bearded bloke in a hat." This is so like juxtaposition of worlds. It's unbelievable. But yeah, really cool. And I have to say as well, like I really rate Magnus as a guy. Everybody's got an opinion on him, haven't they? And I've spent a lot of time with him. I've seen him meet a lot of people and be as an engaging and enthusiastic and positive with the last person as he was the first. And I just, what an incredible person and character to be able to do that. And he's captivated the Porsche community, I think, in a really special way. I think it's fair to say before Magnus came along, Porsches could have been a little bit, golf clubs and beige trousers, dare I say it. Whereas now it's kind of, it's trendy to have a beard. Not that I'm going to have one anytime soon, but it's trendy to have a beard and, and all the tattoos. And it's a different audience, a different driver that perhaps otherwise might not have looked at a 911, for example,
Yeah.
So, great guy.
So hypothetically, you get a call from the BBC tomorrow saying the Stig's gone sick. Would you fancy a go at kind of doing Top Gear on telly?
Without a doubt. I mean, that's just not even a job, is it? It just, you just watch it and like it's not a car magazine show. It's an entertainment show with cars, and I think once people kind of head around it, you realise it's just a phenomenal show. I mean, like the money involved to do that sort of stuff is just unreal, and it gets more and more silly, doesn't it? And you think, how can they better it? I don't know what you think to this, actually, Andy. I'll be keen to know myself. But I think since the old guard left, and the new guys that are in now, in terms of Harris and Freddie Flintoff and Paddy McGuinness, I think it's even better. I think it's really gone up a level. And I think we all watching them, we all feel like we're a part of that group, don't we? I don't know. Like I say, what do you think?
Yeah, I think like, obviously whoever took over, I think Chris Evans obviously had a really hard role to take, and I think he probably got a bit too much stick for it, because obviously he filled Jezza and all the rest shoes, and obviously picked up from that. The others, I suppose there was a little bit less expectation of them. It's definitely watchable. Personally, I don't know whether I'd want the kind of when. Do you remember when they put the thing out on social media going, "Oh, do you want to be the next Top Gear presenter?" And a few people tagged me, and I was like, "No, I wouldn't want that." Especially kind of everyone grilling Chris Evans, just telling him like he's ruined. It's like, no, I'm not putting my head on the block for that one, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like with football, isn't it? Like when David Moyes succeeded Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. I mean, no one wants that sort of job.
It's never going to go well.
Yeah, and you're right. I think Chris Evans was unfortunately the fall guy for it. But it was funny, wasn't it? Like when it was touting everybody to just send in CVs. It was like anybody involved in the automotive industry was getting tagged or being prompted, and it was quite funny. You know, I remember my CEO at the time, or MD, sorry, he was saying, "Oh, I think you should go for it." And I said, he was just trying to get rid of me on the cheap. So, and look further, Dave the Blade's back in the game. Yeah, Chris Harris's cars is superb. He's always been brilliant. Yes, and that's it. He's absolutely the right person for that job. He brings the nous and the know-how. He's a fantastic driver, brilliant journalist, very engaging guy. And the other two just make it work in terms of the entertainment factor. You can't help but sit and watch Top Gear these days and have a really kind of good laugh and feel like you want one of them. So, yeah, cracking. If it comes up, yes, please. Yes, please.
Where in the world would you love to go to explore the Porsche culture that you've not been? Is there someone you'd kind of specifically like to meet?
I would love to meet Andreas Preulinger properly. I'll address that one first. I met him at Goodwood a couple of years back. To be honest, I made an absolute hash of introducing myself properly. I went into boy mode rather than professional mode. Was just like...
I've heard the name. Tell me who he is.
Andreas Preulinger. So he's like head of the GT production line at Porsche. So any amazing car with a GT engine in it, he's responsible for it. Been there 20 odd years, and really is the man responsible for like this renaissance of the manual sports car at Porsche. And so I just went into absolute fanboy mode, like I often kind of do in these scenarios, and it just didn't go down well. It was kind of like the most awkward meeting. And he was kind of like looking at me like, "Who the hell are you? You're kind of getting in the way." And I was just like, "Yeah, I don't know who I am. I think I am getting in the way." And so we have exchanged emails since, and I can't apologise because he's massively into his AC/DC, as am I. It was an interesting kind of mutual common ground. But I'd like to meet him properly because, again, just like absolute fanboy stuff, what he's done with that GT department in GT cars in the last 20, 25 years. I mean, he's shaped the automotive landscape, so it'd be great to sit and pick his brains for an afternoon. In terms of culture, I just don't think it gets better than the States. I've been lucky enough to go West Coast, but never actually been East Coast. And going to the Daytona 24 hours is on my bucket list. So I'd love to go there. And if anybody wants to come with me, let's arrange it. Let's get the plane sorted as soon as the world's finished having a wobble and get out there, because the guys in the States, I've never met a crowd that are just like, so like, "Oh yeah, you should meet him. He's got a cool car." And then, "Oh, why don't you drive my car? I've just met you. Drive my car." I mean, I just think, how cool is that? You know, like, genuinely, like I remember one time we were in San Diego, went to Cars and Coffee, and I'd been chatting to a guy 30 seconds, never met him before, and he was like, "You must drive my 1972 Targa," and then like shoved the keys in my hand. And I'm like, okay, the next thing you know, I'm bombing along these roads just outside San Diego. I've absolutely no idea where I am. I realise I'm going far too fast because I'm looking around trying to take it all in. There's police there, so get on the anchors, and you just think, this is mad. Well, you know, what if I don't come back, or you know, the next thing you know, it's wrapped around a tree, or the police have got it. But yeah, like again, how awesome is that those guys are just willing to share their passion, you know? And I'm sure that is replicated on the East Coast as much as the West.
Cool. I guess, yeah, as a final question, really, I've heard your episode the other day, we were talking about the Taycan or Taycan. So with your current thoughts on EV cars and their infrastructure, would you rather have a 996 with a Taycan running gear, or a Taycan with suitable Porsche combustion engine to power it?
Yeah, that is a great question, I have to say. For me, and it kind of is, I suppose, a little bit controversial, a Porsche, what characterises a Porsche is not how well the seats are made, or, you know, how nice it is inside or anything like that. It is how that engine makes you feel, how that engine transcends into emotion on the road. Engine being the key word there. I had a Taycan, still don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest with you. A couple of weeks ago, great car, had an absolute nightmare charging it. I ended up having to go to 4 different stations. It literally took all day, whether it's with petrol, as I've said on the podcast, splash and dash, you know, you fill up and you crack on. So it left me cold. In terms of electric cars generally, they're cool, but they just don't have the soul of an engine. So therefore, despite the Taycan being absolutely huge, I'd probably need planning permission if I was to keep it outside my house for too long. I would have that with a 996 engine in it, without even though the engine's made of chocolate as well. So, yeah. What about you anyway? Like, so let's turn that around.
I'd go the opposite, but I wouldn't kind of. I don't use the 944 daily anymore. I've got like an A3 just for kind of banging around in. So yeah, I'd go the opposite and put EV in an older car.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to go, isn't it? It's like I think we'll all be driving around in electric cars, but before long. And the idea of having a sports car, it's a bit like owning a horse. It's like it's a hobby, something you do at the weekend. And, you know, we'll not that we're quite as posh, but yeah, I think that's just the way it's going to go, without a doubt. But I'm not rushing to buy an electric car, I'm afraid.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think the infrastructure's there. I got the chance to drive a electric Beetle, so a classic Beetle, but it was electric. A place called Jack's Garage in London, who do kind of conversions for them. I drove a couple. I drove kind of an older one and a newer one, and yeah, apart from the fact, obviously, kind of outside, it's looking, and it's got it looks obviously like an old Beetle. It's got some sort of deeper running boards to hide the batteries. You wouldn't know, but actually, for having all the weight underneath it, it kind of went round corners like it was on rails. Like it was really planted. Yeah. So yeah, if I was in London and just needed something to potter around, then yeah, definitely. And I'd rather have something with the aesthetic of a classic than the kind of the more modern stuff. And then so you got the environmental thing with it, that somehow you've got to make the electric.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you know, if we all bought cars and plugged it overnight, you know, the grid wouldn't cope. So I see you're getting stick in the comments, with your flat battery. So
one of my cars has got a flat. I drove the A3 to Hereford the other week to see a friend, and it had a flat battery in the morning. So I drove it from here to Hereford like 4.5 hours. I didn't turn it off all the way, just stopped in laybys and kind of ran into a bush, ran back again. I was like, I can't stop because then I've got to jump it, and obviously COVID's going on, so no one wants to see you. So like, I can't even just flag someone down for a jump start. I was like, I've just got to leave it running.
I've had a similar problem, to be honest, with my 996 at the moment. But I've seen a comment here. It doesn't replace the noise and the smells, but it is interesting. No, I'd agree with that. There's an interest for me. It's a different type of thrill, isn't it? Ultimately. But yeah, just not. my wife's just thanked Dave. You're getting stick from right, left, and centre.
Right, yeah. I have to go before I dig a bigger hole.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah,
thank you very much for.
Likewise, Andy. Cheers for your time. It's great to kind of have a chat over this channel. And again, you know, with the stuff from Drive Heritage, I've had a few bits off you guys in recent months, haven't I? Bolts and spacers, and love it all. So appreciate all the good work that you guys do there as well. So
Thank you very much. So for people trying to find you, you're Lee_Sibs on Instagram.
I'm indeed, yeah.
And then YouTube is that 9/11 guy, but all in words, isn't it?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, to avoid any certain connotations with events. Yeah.
Legal lawsuits and stuff.
I've had people mention, yeah, maybe I should change it, but yeah, sorry.
And then Road to Redline on all good podcast apps. And total911.com for everything you need to know about the magazine.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Like I say, pleasure to chat to you. That was great fun, and yeah, hope to do it again soon.
Cool, thank you very much, Lee.
Nice one, Andy. Best.
If there's anyone out there who would be interested in chatting live with myself or Steph, then yeah, drop us a DM and we can have a chat about getting you on. Massive thanks to everyone for watching and your questions, and also winding us up. We'll be saving this story to our Instagram TV in just a minute, and also we'll get it onto Facebook as well as soon as technology allows. See you soon. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you very much. See you later.
Later. Bye.